Welcome to the lecture on possibility, probability, and diagrams. This stuff is not in the book, and it's really important because it forms a useful tool that we can use throughout the rest of the course. So the idea here is that the diagrams, which we're really driving at in this lecture, are connected very closely with two notions that are easily confused, but they're definitely related. Not exactly the same, but for your purposes, you can think they offer alternative ways of understanding what we're really after in this course, which is probabilities. So possibility and probabilities, that's where we're going. So possibility and probability. What is probability? That's a hard question. So rather than get at that first, we're going to talk about possibilities, and we're going to use the tossing of dice. Dice is 2, die is 1, right? The tossing of that is an example. So think of tossing 1 die, 2 dice. If you want to know what's the probability of something, like for instance, what's the chances of getting a 5 when you roll it, we say it's 1 out of 6, right? Why is that? Well, probabilities can be viewed as possible ways of counting. That's how it comes about. So for when you roll a die, one of them, the 5 in this particular example, or what I have in the lecture is slightly different, but again, same point. The 5 is just one way of getting it. There's only one face that has the 5. And there's 6 possible outcomes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the die. So that's why the chances of rolling a 5 is 1 out of 6, 1/6. The 1/6, that number, that probability, represents a weighing of one possible outcome divided by all possible outcomes. Division, we just learned this in high school and we don't even think about what it represents. But what we're about in this course is the concepts. Division you can think of as a weighting, 1 part per this. So if we're talking about a recipe and we say there's 1 cup flour to, I don't know, 3 cups something else, you're saying the proportion is 1 to 3. The division, that line of dividing, stands as the number above is the smaller portion, the number below is the larger portion. Yeah? The example I gave of cooking actually is not totally true. It's a bit misleading, but since it's in our common parlance, I'm going to use it anyway. Again, the way to think of it more generally, though, is that division is a weighting of one thing over, divided by, the larger pool or class of things. Yeah? Okay, moving on. There's an important notion that's also not covered in the book, and we need to have it for the future for the course, and it's in the next homework. Permutations, that's the fancy word, are talking about all possible ways of something occurring where order matters. Combinations, by contrast, are possible ways of something occurring but order doesn't matter. I'll talk about this a bit later. You can read this in the lecture once again, an example to help out, but it's really the homework that will sort of drive that home. What I want to get to is the importance of diagramming. Possibilities and probabilities, again, are closely related. Diagrams help to indicate just what those possibilities are, and then if you know how to track those possibilities, you can read that information off the diagram to then talk about probabilities. Okay, so here's an example. The diagram here is a lot, but all it represents is, let's say you toss a coin 3 times. Or we could talk about tossing a die 3 times, right? Or if you're in the casino and you got 2, you're playing craps, you throw 2 of them. Even though you're throwing at the same time, you can still diagram it as 1 toss and 1 toss. Okay, so in this case, let's use coins because coins are easier. So for the first branch, you can get 2 possibilities. You can get heads, H, or tails, T. Now let's stick on that first branch. If you got heads for the first toss, you can toss it again and again get heads or tails, 2 possibilities. And then likewise, you can get heads or tails. And then likewise, think about what this branch represents. It just represents the tracking of all possible outcomes when you toss a coin 3 times. You could get heads, 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 tails, heads, tails, heads, and so on and so forth. Yeah. I'll talk about this later as to how it relates to probabilities, but what we got here is our first pass at how possibilities are related to diagrams. So we're talking in this case about all possible outcomes for 3 tosses of a coin. And then the branches represent each event. I toss the coin once, second branch, I toss it twice, and then likewise down here. And then third branch, I toss it a third time there, and so on and so forth. And then on the right side, it lists concretely all these possible outcomes. Okay, that's it for the lecture. Try out the homework and as always, give it a shot on your own. If you get stuck, there's video guidance. Remember, don't cheat and use the video guidance first. It will not help you out in the long run, especially with the upcoming exams, which are heavily weighted towards gauging what you're understanding. So again, if you just copy and paste things, you're not going to do very well in the exams, and the exams are worth far more than this necessary practice stuff. Okay, folks, that's it.